Hello there, glad to have you join us on another edition of the program, Focus Live, right here on OGTV, the People's Telly. It's a no-holds-barred discussion program, yes, Focus Live, where we take a look at different issues affecting us in the society. We sometimes prefer solutions to some of these problems, really, so that it can actually, or they can actually be nipped in the bud. Today, we are going to actually be doing like an expose, really, because sometimes last week, the State House of Assembly did a stakeholders engagement, held a stakeholders engagement on a bill that it tagged termination of pregnancy bill. So we are going to be looking at the pros and the cons of this bill. We are going to be looking at what really this bill is set out to achieve. We are going to be looking at the advantages. We are going to be looking at the problems on the ground that have actually warranted this bill, to come up in the first place, and how it intends to actually address some of these problems. The bill is still right there on the floor of the Ogun State House of Assembly. Just last week, as I said earlier on, stakeholders, religious leaders, people from the medical profession, healthcare practitioners, yes. We also had religious leaders, yes. All of them, and civil society groups are actually converged at the Ogun State House of Assembly to really deliberate on this bill and then to also make contributions. So we are going to be looking at some of these issues that were discussed or raised in the course of the deliberations last week. And in the studio with me to take a look at this very important issue in the next couple of minutes is Olamide Ogunsoya. Olamide Ogunsoya is a head health advocate. Of course, he is a pharmacist and a community pharmacist, a leadership development enthusiast, committed to promoting elder communities through health education, disease prevention, and access to quality health care. He's passionate about public enlightenment and on responsible medicine use, preventive health care, and community-based health interventions, while actively engaging in initiatives that improve public health outcome. It's also necessary that we had that he's also a pastor, so on the program today, probably he's going to be wearing two hats while he's speaking as a health practitioner. He's also going to be speaking as a pastor. Because this particular issue actually requires, multi-dimension. We have to look at it from different perspectives, really. And health and religious perspectives are very, very important, really, to this. So it's a pleasure having you join the conversation.
Thank you, Dominic. It's good to be here, and good day to all our listeners all over the world. Yeah. Thank you.
Now let's start by looking at this particular bill, and now it is actually on the floor of the Ogun State House of Assembly.
Yeah.
Is it urgent, really?
Yeah.
Why now? And why? Some people will say it ought to have come before now. Some people think, why are we having it?
Yeah.
Because in a way, it might actually encourage, certain things. Really. So
yeah. Thank you, Dominic. There is a popular saying that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. And so I think we need to give a lot of kudos to the Ogun State House of Assembly for taking the bull by the horn. You agree with me that this is a very sensitive issue. This is a cultural issue. It also has a lot of religious undertone as well. And many times is a space that everybody tries to stay clear of. However, when we look at the damage, talking about the mortality rates that comes with unsafe pregnancy termination or safe abortion, as the case may be, then you agree with me that this is actually the right time to actually look at this law and see how it can be modified so that death rates that we are having from this process of abortion can actually be nipped in the bud. So for me, it is the right time. and a good one to the Ogun State House of Assembly for being courageous enough to bring up this bill for review and for eventual passage as law.
Maybe we should even also take a look at what the bill intends to address, really.
Yeah, thank you. So when we look at the law of the land, right? The law of Nigeria prohibits abortion, to start with, so that our viewers can get it clearly. Abortion in Nigeria is a criminal offense. Both when we look at because in the southern part of the country is under the criminal code, and in the northern part is under the penal code, right? So it's a criminal offense to commit abortion, except where the life of the mother or the woman carrying the pregnancy is at risk. So it is at that point in time that abortion can actually be considered. So, and when we look at, so that's like a clause or a lacuna that can be explored, to have abortion done. However, there's still a lot of, it's still vague. There is no clarity. So how do we define that, at this instance, the life of the mother is at risk? And that is what the bill that the Ogun State House of Assembly is trying to provide clarity, so that there will be clarity as to when it can be done, there will be clarity as to how it should be done, and also to really define that it is actually needed at this time. So when we talk about times that this can actually be needed, like I said, it is when the life of the mother is at risk. For instance, maybe someone is pregnant and he has a very uncontrollable hypertension. We call it preeclampsia. You're right? So when a pregnant woman as such, and they've done everything to bring it under control, and it is not being controlled, it can lead to the death of the woman. So in that instance, it can become considered. Also, there are cases where there are unexplainable organ failures in pregnancy, right? Maybe the kidneys just started failing, the liver starts failing and all that. At those instances, some medications may need to be administered. And when it's done, it can impact the life of the mother and also the baby as well. So at that instance, it can be considered. There are also cases around conditions like cancer and all that, where the mother may need to begin what we call chemotherapy, right? So at that instance, the life of the mother is at risk, and she cannot continue to carry the pregnancy. So at those instances, it is allowed that a pregnancy can actually be terminated. So the law or the bill at the House of Assembly is looking at how to clarify all of these things, so that as a healthcare practitioner, as a medical doctor, for instance, I'm a pharmacist, a medical doctor can sit and say, okay, in these instances, it can be considered. In these instances, it cannot be considered, and when it is considered, then these are the guidelines. These are the things that we need to do. It's not just left to the prerogative of the healthcare practitioner on how to go about it. So the bill is bringing about how will I put it now? Guidelines, that will help the healthcare practitioner, that can also protect the healthcare practitioners as well. Like I said, under the criminal code, it's illegal in Nigeria. So a doctor can also be sued, right, when that is done. So, but when the doctor has all of these guidelines to protect him or herself, so the healthcare practitioners are also eventually protected when this guideline is in effect, to guide the practice and also protect the life of the woman carrying the pregnancy.
So how does this also expose those quacks, really, who are actually in the business of
yeah, absolutely. One of the big things that this bill will help us to do is to actually prevent mortality. That's a death that happens in the hands of these quacks. Because the law does not provide clarity as to how this should be done. Many people that have this, that are pregnant and maybe their life is threatened, or they needed an abortion, they cannot go to the hospital because it is considered to be illegal. However, by the time there is clarity around the bills, those that know that they can actually access this safe pregnancy termination, they know where to go. So they don't go to quacks. Wow. And the reason we have a lot of mortality around abortion or termination of pregnancy is because it is actually conducted by quacks. You know, it's unfortunate we don't have figures in Nigeria, but I can tell you for free that 80% of the abortion that is done in this country is done by quacks. It's done by quacks because the doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists, they wouldn't dare to put their license in the line, right? So most of it is done by the quacks, and that is why we are having a lot of untoward effects, mortality rates, you know, coming out from this process of unsafe abortion. So when we talk about abortion generally, you know, so we can say, okay, there's a safe and there's unsafe, right? The safe part of it is when it is done by a healthcare practitioner under the ambient of the law. The unsafe part is when it is done by quacks, you know, with disregard to the laws that guides it.
The program is still focused live right here on OGTV, and yes, we are actually examining the bill that is currently before the Ogun State House of Assembly, which an engagement was held, public engagement was held concerning it a few days ago. I still have my guests in the studio with me, and you also can be part of the conversation. The number for you to call is right there on the screen. Feel free to call us, and also let's know your thoughts and your take on this. Now, we have the Ogun State House of Assembly trying to actually create a bill which will eventually turn into law for the state, as a matter of fact. But the Constitution does not recognize abortion, as a matter of fact, criminalizes you know, abortion and the rest of them. So how do we resolve or reconcile all of these differences?
Thank you. So I think in 2015 or 2018, the law was also looked at by the National Assembly, and you know, they looked at some other instances beyond when the life of the mother or the woman carrying the pregnancy is at risk, some other circumstances that could warrant an abortion. So they looked at cases of pregnancy from rape. They looked at cases of pregnancy from incest, right? They looked at cases of pregnancy in mentally unstable patients, right? You know, that got pregnant, maybe someone just impregnates the person and all that. I think that is still an ongoing discussion, right? So that there can be a little bit of widening and a little bit of more, how will I put it, compassion, so to say, that is also put into this discussion. So when we look at the law of the land, yes, the law gives a window. And that window is still the fact that it is when the life of the mother, the woman carrying the pregnancy, when her life is at stake, that is when it is allowed. And if you also listen to the Speaker of the House of Assembly of the State, when that parley was held, you know, they also alluded to the fact that they are consolidating, they are discussing, they are engaging, right? And they will not do anything that is outside of the law. You know, they are legislators, so they can't legislate anything outside of the law. So all of the legislation will still be around the window that the law of the land has permitted. However, for me, my own take is that not just Ogun State House of Assembly alone, all other states' assembly should also take a step further, right, to have engagement with the National Assembly, right, to ensure that this law, abortion law in Nigeria, is also looked at to accommodate some other germane and important instances where this can be done. This is not a license for frivolous termination of pregnancy. This is not taking sides. You know, there are two schools of thoughts. There are the pro-life. Pro-life are the people that say no to abortion, and there are the pro-choice that say, oh, it's a choice, right? So not taking sides with any of the divide, you know, but we should make laws that would be compassionate, you know. 'Cause if you look at a rape case for instance, I mean, you know, imagine the trauma that the person that got pregnant out of rape will go through. You know, look at pregnancy from incest. You know, imagine the kind of trauma, the stigmatization that such a person will also need to go through. So I'm soliciting and encouraging states House of Assembly all over the nation to engage the National Assembly and see how this law can actually be amended at the National Assembly, so that it will be easy for state government to have the bills, and so that it can cover the necessary categories of patients that needed to be covered by it.
I mean, you have actually led me on to the next question that I intend asking, which is actually in regards to, you know, those who are pro-life, who actually believe that there is sanctity in human life. Since we did not create, we do not have the right to take as a matter of fact. So how do we balance that? I'm sure it's more of the religious perspective. So how do we balance, I mean, this?
Thank you.
I mean, because what you have said concerning the abortion, you know, and the need for this bill to see the light of the day, I mean, makes a great deal of sense. You know, but we all know that Nigeria is, I mean, religiously inclined.
Absolutely.
So how do we you know, reconcile all of this?
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so the argument from the pro-life camp is that, just like you said, every life matters, and terminating life, you know, amounts to murder. You know, whether the life is still in the belly as fetus or it's out already, is still a life. And one of the arguments is that if your own pregnancy had actually been terminated, you won't be here today. You know, so that's the argument, you know, from the pro-life camp, which of course made a lot of sense, right? Which we also understand their perspective and all that. So, but having a balance is that this law or this bill is not a license for frivolous termination of pregnancies. You know, this is only saying that in a situation where the life of the mother is in danger, in a situation, and that's where the law stops at the moment. But we are saying that in situations where the mental health of the mother will also be will be tampered with, in case of incest, rape, you know, and stuff like that, that the law should be amended and this should be allowed. Because you know, I forgot how this is put. You know, we are not made for the law, right? The law is made for us. So there should be a level of reasoning, a level of understanding, you know. The rigidity around this law should actually be looked at, so that we'll be fair unto ourselves and also unto the people concerned. So for me, we must have a balance. The pro-life camp must understand that, which is the camp I tend to be tilted to anyways, you know, we must understand that this is not a license to promote immorality in the society, because the mindset is that, oh, people can just afford, you know, get involved in unprotected sex and get pregnant, there are no issues, just get it terminated and life goes on and all that. Yeah, that is not what the law is for. The law says it is for people whose life is at stake because of the pregnancy, or people whose mental health or physical well-being will also be affected because of it. So that is where the permutation. There's also how will I put it now? There's this conspiracy theory, right? That's also around the issue of safe termination of pregnancy, right? And that comes from the skepticism that we have towards the Western world. You know, some of the pro-life camp also believe that this is actually sponsored by some of these organizations. We can't mention their names, you know, that just want to limit our population, that just want to control population, that doesn't want us to grow and all that. Some even believe that, oh, we have, even in Nigeria, we are too much, and that is why the resources is not going around, and all of these things are just they are just for me they are frivolous allegations, right? I mean, the country
element of
truth in them. Yeah, for me, yes, because when you look at some of the powerhouse in the world now, look at China, look at their population. Look at India, look at their population. What is the population of Nigeria beside them, right? So I think our
probably they are trying to suppress us so that we
so that you don't get close to them, right? So a lot has to come into play. You know, there's also a lot of politicking right around it, but that does not mean that this bill is sponsoring frivolous termination of pregnancy. It does not. And also, coming up with this bill does not also say that people should freely, you know, it doesn't mean that abortion will be readily available. No, it's not going to be readily available. It is based on those criteria that have been set ahead. And by the time the bill is adopted, you know, there will also be follow-up, you know, with maybe any healthcare practitioner that is involved in the procedure, and you can be sure that if any healthcare practitioner breach the procedure or breach the guideline, such a healthcare practitioner will also be liable. So it is not a license for immorality, as many may be thinking. I think it's just to ensure that some category of people that would need it would actually have access to it, and they will have access to it at the right facilities with the right healthcare practitioners. Because with all of this, it is still happening. People still get abortion, and unfortunately they are getting it from quacks such that eventually when they get it, they also, many of them, in fact we have a good number of them that die, right? We have a terrible situation not too long ago, some months ago, you know, of a NYC person, you know, and all that. So those are some of the realities. There are some of the realities, you know, around it. So yeah.
According to reports, I mean, yes, I agree with you that there is no figure really that is actually put to it, you know, but according to estimated, you know, statistics, like out of you know, the percent of the mortality rate that we have, like 10 to 20 actually as a result of unsafe termination. Okay, now let's talk about the facilities. I mean, if eventually this bill is actually, you know, worked upon and it sees the light of the day, you know, do we have the facilities, you know, and even the right hands to be able to, you know, do this? Because it means that more people than now than expected, or than we are seeing now, would actually want to access that. Now, do we have the right facilities and do we have the hands really to handle this? Absolutely. Are we not going to still experience the mortality rate of 10 or 20 or even more percentage?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dominic. I can say categorically that we have the facility. We have the facility right here in Ogun State, and I can even say for all over the country. We have teaching hospitals, we have secondary hospital facilities in our regular states. You know, by the time the guidelines are in place, these are things that can even be done at the primary health centers, right? As much as the training will be done, as much as the guidelines will be provided, as also more that the medications, the devices, you know, that will also be used, will also be provided by the government. So we have the facility. You know, God has blessed us so much, you know, as a nation, that even with the JAPA syndrome that we are experiencing in the health sector, you know, we still have good hands. We still have hands, you know, within our various facilities that can have this done, you know. And one of the good things is also that this is not only limited to what a particular part of the healthcare sector can do, you know. As much as the training is there, the licensing is there, is given, a good number of the sectors within the section within the health sector can actually have it also. This is not going to put a strain on the healthcare facility in any way. Rather, it is going to bring joy to certain families or certain individuals, you know, that would have had it in an unsafe place, and that would have left them with terrible adverse effects, you know, that they will be battling for the rest of their life, or even possible death and all that. But they'll be having it in a safe hand, and we can be sure that after the process, they are also good, and their life is on.
So what mechanism would you actually suggest the Ogun State Ministry of Health actually put in place to ensure that this is strictly monitored, this is not abused, and then, I mean, we really address the problem we are trying to, you know, solve?
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dominic. That's a very fantastic question and perspective. I think for me, the starting point is from the place of education. You know, we need to always start from prevention. We need to, you know, and when you look at the statistics, you know, the category of people that make the large chunk of this issue of unsafe abortion, actually the young ones. So we need the Federal Ministry of Health and all of its agencies need to do a lot of work in sensitizing and advocating for safe sex, if it needs to happen at all. You know, of course, you know, from the religious perspective, is that even when you are not married, you have no business in it. As a matter of fact, it's a sin. You know, so so if you have to engage in sex, you need to practice safe sex. There are a lot of contraceptions that can be used, you know, to ensure that even if you practice it, you do not eventually get pregnant. So a lot needs to be done about it. I think we need to break that silence. I think that silence may be because of our culture, where anything around sex is usually seen as, oh, we don't shout about it. Even at homes, you hardly see parents having sex education with their children. You know, in schools, we are always silent about it and all that. So I think the Federal Ministry of Health needs to begin from the point of prevention, not even when the pregnancy is on already. And let them know that, see, it is not a thing of delight, right? That when you are not married, you are pregnant. It's not. Culturally, it's not. Even religiously, you know, it's even a sin, it's even a bigger one. So let's the Federal Ministry of Health, through the orientation agencies of the state and every apparatus that they could use, speak out against unsafe sex, particularly among our young ones. It's as bad as happening in secondary schools and all of that. We need to do more in that regard. We need to sensitize them and also ensure that morality that seems to be declining in our space is actually improved upon. Then after that, we can now start talking about, okay, when it happens, so what do we do? So there's a need for a lot of advocacy. There's a need for a lot of engagement. While we appreciate the House of Assembly for the parley that happened the last time, I think they could have done more. For instance, I'm not sure the sector I belong to, the pharmaceutical space, got an invite. We only saw that, oh, MMA got invite, the nurses got invite. We are the custodians of the medications that will be used if that process needs to happen at all. So we didn't get an invite. So I'm calling for more inclusivity. They've done well, we applaud them, but they should do more inclusivity. Let every relevant sector of the healthcare be a part of it. Let's work together, let's think about this together and come out with a solid framework that can actually help. Then talking about...
yes, you definitely would actually talk about that, but let's quickly go on this break. When we come back, the conversation is going to continue. Do not go anywhere. The program is still focused live right here on OGTV. Okay. My producer has said we should fire on all cylinders, so we are going to fire on. The program Stay Focused Live right here on OGTV, and yes, we are actually taking a look at the proposed bill by the Ogun State House of Assembly on termination of safe termination of pregnancy. Yes, that's what we are looking at, and we have in the studio with us pharmacist Olamide Ogunsoya. Yes, he's a health advocate, and of course, a man of God. And he has, I mean, those are the two caps he's wearing on the program today, and is actually handling or managing those two portfolios very, very well. Let me allow you land on, on the point you were trying to make.
Thank you. So, you know, we are talking about, so how do we ensure compliance? How do we ensure that abuse does not set in? Because, you know, as humans, when you give a little opportunity, people tend to explore that opportunity beyond the space, you know, that is given. And that is one thing about humans. And that is why this law has been rigid even from inception. But if all of this amendment, as we are looking at, eventually scale through, I believe the state has the capacity, you know, to monitor. The state has the capacity, you know, to actually regulate, you know, and ensure that there is no abuse of this whatsoever. So,
as a neutral, let's just assume that you are neither a man of God nor a pharmacist or a healthcare practitioner. As a neutral, what challenges really, you know, do you foresee that this may actually have?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so just like you rightly said, there could be challenges, and the challenges is basically around abuse, right? Because now people practice termination of pregnancy. They practice it hidden. They don't come out, you know, to talk about it. They don't even document it, right? So, but when it is now giving that go ahead, mind you, the go ahead we are talking about is not that it is legal, is that those category of people that needs it are now clarified. They are now identified, and there is a possibility of expanding it a little bit beyond those that the life of the mother is at risk, and we are looking at, okay, maybe case of rape, incest, and all that. So beyond that, there could be possibility of abuse, but like I said, the state has the capacity, the state has the wherewithal, you know, to ensure that any form of abuse is managed. And that is one of the feedback that the Ogun State House of Assembly should also get, to also ensure that the punitive measures that would also come with any form of abuse of this process is not in the terms of go and pay 5,000 naira, go and pay 10,000 naira and all that. So the punitive measure should be so strong enough that that alone will deter anybody, you know, from trying to collude with either patient or whoever that gets pregnant, you know, to access unnecessary and frivolous termination of pregnancy, as the case may be.
So let us also look at other services, you know, that you think we should also try and put in place, you know, if this is going to happen. What other support services we should be?
You know, like I mentioned earlier, at the beginning is prevention. That should herald the call. However, this prevention also is not in the line of encouraging teenagers to take contraceptives, right? The prevention is also to encourage teenagers, youths, young ones, to ensure that they abstain from sex, right? So that's the beginning, because the mindset of most people is that, oh, by the time this bill came through, then it's free for all. No, it's not. So we must still let them know that abstinence is still the way to go, right? And because there was an instance, I think it happened in Lagos, where, you know, we saw secondary school students with contraceptives. You know, we are not even talking about, when we talk about contraceptives, we are not even talking about, okay, say condoms and all that, with pills, right? And all of these things, they have untoward effects on the user, right? Because at that stage it amounts to drug abuse, right? For those category of patients or students using it. So prevention should allow it. Then of course I believe that by the time this bill is sorted out and the guidelines are being put in place, every facility that will be needed would ensure that there are necessary provisions. One of the major risks with abortion is loss of blood, hemorrhage, right? And all of these things are things that we expect that the guideline will also put in place, that anywhere that this will be happening, you must ensure that this, for instance, blood is made available, so that if there is a case of excessive loss of blood, because that is the leading cause of death from unsafe termination of pregnancy. So when there is going to be now safe termination of pregnancy, there must be provision of blood, there must be provision of oxygen, should in case the patient goes into coma and all that, in order to ensure that as we are making it safe, we are also not being negligent on some of those things that can still bring about the loss of life in the process.
Well, before I ask my next question, I mean, you keep prompting, leading me on to my next question. I mean, you must be a prophet. Okay, so, I mean, there is a message really from one Victoria, from Chapon, from Chapon, I beg your pardon. Now, she said, kudos to OGTV for the good work. My question is, will the bill not encourage youth to live the wayward life? I mean, you have addressed
it will not. It will not.
And then she said, I will advise it shouldn't be passed into law. Thank you.
It is. Well, it's our opinion, which I respect. The law is there. Abortion is illegal, except when the life of the pregnant woman is at risk. So that is the law, right? So what we are now saying is, okay, which pro-choice camp are saying, okay, in the case of rape, in the case of incest, and all that. And until we are in that shoe, we won't really know the weight of those conditions. Imagine a married woman that for whatever reason rape happened, she got pregnant. Imagine if she's your sister. How do you think she should go about it to carry on with that child? When people will regularly call bastard, how will the child even himself or herself feel and all that? So that's why we are saying that there should be a level of compassion around it. It is not a license that every pregnancy that is unwanted will be terminated. No. We are only saying if it is established that it's on these grounds, yes, it can be considered.
I mean, if a teenager actually gets pregnant, and I mean, some persons might want to hide under the guise that, it's a threat, it could be a threat to our life.
No, it is the doctors that would say that. It's not even the patient. It's not even the person that got pregnant. And that is why this guideline is very important. So that the doctors will know where to come in, how far they could go. They are the ones determining that this can be done, not you. You don't know whether it's a threat to your life or not. So it is the healthcare practitioners that will say that, with this pregnancy you are carrying, it's a threat to your life, it needs to go.
The program is still focused live right here on OGTV. I still have pharmacist Olamide Ogunsoya in the studio, and the number for you to call to be part of the conversation is still right there on the screen. Feel free to call us and also let us have your thoughts really on this. Now, we have a huge gulf really between infrastructure in urban areas and those in rural areas. Won't that also, in a way, setting as a challenge?
Yes, thank you very much. It's an obvious challenge, and I believe that it is also not surmountable, right? It's also not surmountable because in all of those rural settings, there are primary centers, there are facilities there. All that will be done is that they will likely, I'm just speaking now, I believe that as a standard procedure, there will be training, right? There will be training, and when it's obvious that in those rural settings and all that, there's always room to refer to the nearest community or town that has a facility where there can be a doctor that can really ascertain that this procedure should be done or it should not be done.
Now let's also take a look at the effect really of termination of pregnancy. You know, probably that in a way would actually even deter people, you know, from even wanting to do it if the need for it, you know, does not really arise.
You see, the need is even around threat to life, majorly, as the law of the land stands now. So it's not something that is optional. I want, I don't want. When your life is at risk, you know, it will have to be done, right? So, and that most times is even beyond you. They just get consent from your relative, you know, and the doctor is certain that you need it and not. So that's where the law is. So as regards whether they had the untoward effect, yes, it's enough to deter us, you know, from engaging in abortion. Because one of the leading cause of death from abortion is actually loss of blood, you know, that I mentioned earlier. And you know, it's always painful, particularly for parents, right? That after training your child, you know, to university, and because she got pregnant and she's not very comfortable with the I don't want to use the word stigma, but with taking responsibility, right, for our actions, and decide to terminate the pregnancy in an unsafe way, and such a person loses her life. You know, it's always devastating. I know of a family that the mother of that child, you know, she's not even based in Nigeria, but she felt, I don't want my daughter to be with me in the United Kingdom. I want her to be in Nigeria so that she can pick values, morals, and all that. And this girl got pregnant. And she also sought for termination from an unsafe place, and she died. To make the matters worse, she's the only child of that woman, right? So it's not a good call whatsoever. So we encourage the young ones, you know, we encourage them that it is not always the right thing to do.
Okay, so we have a caller. Good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. Are you there? We can hear you. Okay. Okay. So let me allow you.
So we have this mortality that comes from loss of blood, right? There's also what sepsis, and that is very common. You know, we see that on a daily basis in practice. You know, because by the time you go to a quack for such procedures, you know, many times there's what we call incomplete evacuation, meaning that there are still some leftovers here and there because they are not following the guideline, they are not following the procedure. So many times that incomplete evacuation leads to sepsis, which is a very severe infection that when it is not attended to within matter of hours, the person can lose his or her, can lose her life. We have that. We also have situations where vital organs in the body are also injured. Like, you know, just to put it in a layman's term, you know, in the course of we want to pull it out and all that, you touch vital organs, you damage those organs. Fine, the organ will still seems to be working, but gradually the organ also start losing its effectiveness. So there is a lot of adverse effects. There's a lot of complications that can come with abortion, right? And that is why we are encouraging our people that rather than even coming to the state of being pregnant in the first instance when it is not needed, let us talk more and do more about prevention. Let's talk more about prevention. Let's do more about prevention. And this task lies mostly in the hands of the parents, believe me. It lies in the hands of the parents. Many parents these days, you know, because we want to provide the needs of the children, the wants of the children, we don't take attention to what our children are doing. You know, a lot of children, because we don't want them to disturb us, we give them devices. Dominic, you can imagine a child giving devices, and internet is also available. Imagine what we excite them to watch. And you know, all of these things begins to form the expectation in the mind of these young ones, and so they want to try it out. And when they try it out, they get pregnant. So parent needs to do a lot more. A lot of parenting needs to be done so that we can curtail all of this, because it's a menace actually, can curtail all of this menace in the society. It impacts on the academics of these children, it impacts on their psyche, it impacts on a lot, you know, even on the parents, you know, it impacts on their economy. So we need to really do more as parents to ensure that our children don't get there, because it actually affects the teenagers more and all that. Below 25, they don't get to that point at all at any point in time.
Now let's take this comment also from Ola. Okay. He actually texted from Olumuri. Now Ola said, I would have loved that our lawmakers should focus on how to better our society instead of focusing on this kind of bill. I mean, according to Ola, he describes the bill as devilish.
Devilish. Okay, so
I mean, with all of these comments, you realize that a lot of information.
Yeah, is a gap.
There is a gap.
Yeah, it's a gap. This is not the only bill the House is working on.
Yes.
the House is doing.
That's also another aspect.
Yeah, the House is doing a lot with regards to infrastructure, our general well-being. I'm not their spokesperson, right? But this concerns me because it's my space, right? As a healthcare practitioner, and like I said, it's like our people are not really getting the point yet. The point is that abortion is illegal. The only time when it can be done is when there is a threat to the life of the person carrying the pregnancy. Would you love it that you have a jar that used to get water, and because you want to empty the water in the jar, you break the pot, or you break the jar, as the case may be? No. So let's have a way when we don't need the water, we can get the water out and preserve the jar, right? Abortion is happening. It's happening, right? And it's taking lives. So what the bill seems to stem is the mortality rate that is coming from it. And the only way it can happen is to ensure that the window that is allowed is clarified. That is what the House is doing. They are clarifying who are those people that fall into that bracket, that the life is threatened by the abortion. That is what they are clarifying. And I also said that there was a form of amendment that was supposed to happen in 2015 or 2018 that is now considering pregnancy from rape, that is also considering pregnancy from incest. So those are the only windows that are there to be explored. As a matter of fact, as the law of Nigeria stands today, the pregnancy from incest or rape cannot even be considered, because it has not been adopted nationally. So it is only when the life of the mother is at risk. That is what this bill is all about, to clarify. That these are when we say the life of somebody is at risk, these are the things that the person must be going through, so that the doctors can make a definite decision that yes, this person needs it, this person does not need it. So we just need to put a face behind it, to have compassion behind it. It is not a license for lasciviousness. It's not a license for immorality or for any form of untoward effect in the society.
Now you are how would I've forgotten the exact word that I want to use, or that I can use, or the appropriate word to use. You are free-spirited. I mean, you are, okay, there are quite a number of your colleagues who are fanatics. You know, religious fanatics, as a matter of fact. And then they want to stand by their faith. Say, no, I am not interested in this because it's against my beliefs. My faith comes first. You know? And now they are on duty when a case like this arises and the person really needs it. I mean, do you think we should actually exempt them?
You mean as a practitioner?
Yes, practitioner.
Okay, so one of those things about our profession is that our profession is also our religion, right? And as a healthcare practitioner, you wouldn't just want a life to to waste or to be terminated because there is a procedure that needed to be done that your faith do not absolutely align with. When we take oaths, because we take oaths, when we take oaths of induction into our various professions, whether as a medical doctor, whether as a pharmacist, whether as a nurse, we take oaths to prioritize the health and the life of the patient. So I'm not sure if this bill is giving the necessary clarity that it needs. I'm not sure any healthcare practitioner will deny anyone that needs it. And I think that is where we need to really clarify anyone that needs it. And those that needs it are those whose life is at risk because of the pregnancy they carry, because they could die. Maybe they have, like I mentioned some medical conditions earlier that could make someone's life to be at risk. So I'm not sure any of our colleagues will deny anybody such right or such duty when it is actually needed. The underlying word there is when it is needed. Yeah.
I must thank you, gentleman. Yes, gentleman, for your time with us this afternoon, taking a look at this all important topic. Of course, we've been speaking with pharmacist Olamide Ogunsoya, who is a health advocate and also a pastor. Yes, he has won or donned those two hats this afternoon on the program, and he donned them well. We also thank you for reaching out. The calls we were not able to pick, and of course those who reached us via SMS. We also thank you so much for being part of the conversation. Those who could not, as a result of one reason or the other, we also thank you. That's the size of the program for this week. Next week, we are going to be back again with another edition of the program. Enjoy the rest of your week.